Perfect. We're going to go ahead and get started. Today's webinar, it's about 10 a.m. Eastern, so we'll start now. Like usual, if you've been on one of these calls, if you've got questions as we go through the content, you'll notice that there's a panelist that you can see there. Her name is Marlene Parag. If you've got any questions, if you direct them to her, she'll house them, and then we'll answer them at the end of the webinar. And we'll do it that way. Or if you have any issues with audio or even visual, just message Marlene and we'll try to handle any of your concerns or issues that are coming up. So for some of you, some of the names I recognize. So I know you've been on a couple of these calls that we've had so far with ad-ition and the ICMA all around mobile. Today's topic is actually doing a bit of a comparison with different mobile apps that exist. This actually came through the request from someone who was on our last webinar. So following through with some of the things that you've been asking for, we're going to do a comparison of a couple of classified applications that are out there today. For those of you who are new to these calls, my name is Beverly Crandon. I'm the founder of a company called ad-ition, and we've recently kind of joined forces, I guess, for the mobile series of your webinars with ICMA to give you hopefully what you find to be useful pieces of information, all benefits of being a member of the ICMA. So let's go ahead, get started, and jump right into our content. So as I mentioned earlier, we're going to do our best today to kind of compare different mobile applications. We've got some generalist classified apps, and we also have two niche apps. And we've done that because knowing some of your content sets and some of the properties that some of you own out there, I know not only do you have generalist properties, but some of you have autos, or some of you may have real estate or jobs portals, and may be thinking of creating apps that are specific to those things, or even maybe thinking of enhancing some of the apps you already have out. So we felt it important to not just do generalist mobile apps, but also take a look at some of the niche functionality that's there too. It may give you additional insight or pointers into things that you're thinking about internally. So we're going to do our best to kind of compare apps. We'll give you what we think are some of the really neat things that they do, and we'll also address where we felt they may have fell short or could have extended the service to create a better user experience and a better overall product makeup and layout for the users of the mobile app. For our comparison today, you know, when we take a look at all of these apps, there's probably a million and one things that we can compare them on, but we've grouped particular comparison points under specific headings. And the headings that we're using today are design, accessibility, functionality, monetization, and user interface. All equally important, we feel. And if you've got the certain elements, or the right elements, and the right makeup and recipe, and all of these things combined, you're probably looking at a real winning mobile application. I will say this even before we get into the content. There isn't one person that's doing all of this extremely well, but there are different elements that each of these folks that we compare, different elements that they're doing extremely well. So hopefully when we end today, you'll be able to walk away and kind of picking bits and pieces from the different apps and getting some ideas on how you can kind of combine some of those feature sets that really work well into your specific application, whether you're building net new or looking to enhance what you've currently got. So a bit more of an explanation when we talk about those 5 headings that we're going to use for comparison today. So when we're looking at design, we're looking at just basically the look of the app. Is it friendly? Is it inviting? Is there a good use of space in terms of how they've designed the application? And does the design keep the user environment in mind? Last time when we had our mobile webinar, we talked about content and what kind of content is important. And a part of that webinar, we also talked about thinking of your user, the person using your app, and what kind of environment are they in. And I gave the example of, you know, if you're in representing a large urban city, perhaps, you know, transit and trains are the mode of transportation for folks in that city. So are they accessing your mobile app being on the train? So they have one hand available. So they're looking for quick, easy navigational links. So when we talk about design and we say are they being mindful of the user's environment, we're talking about that specifically. When it comes to function, the things we're looking at here are, the available tools that they offer folks to use within the application. Are the tools useful? Are they relevant? Does it make sense based on what someone's going to use the app for? Or are they nice to have and all of a sudden now it clutters up the functionality appearance of the actual application? And we also look a bit at social integration. And social integration for us when it comes to mobile is pretty wide. I know when I say the word social, a lot of you are thinking things like Facebook and Twitter, and that is a part of it. But even allowing me to email or message friends, that type of thing, which may not use a social platform, a social network, but it's still causing for social integration where I'm looking for feedback and sharing content with folks outside of the application. Accessibility just simply means how easy is it for me to find the app. It's one thing if you build it, but I got to be able to find it to use it. So finding it, and also syndication. So, is it just on your website? Is it just on your website in the App Store, or is it someplace else that makes it really easy for me to find it? So you're syndicating the fact that the app actually exists. When we talk about monetization and comparison for monetization, what we're looking at here is in-app revenues. So from the application that I'm using on my smartphone, am I able to spend money with you? Am I able to spend money with you, or as someone using the app looking to buy something or search for content, is it easy for me to see what is premium content and therefore paid for? And we'll also talk about opportunities for monetization. We've got a great example with one of the niche sites that we've used, which if you take a look at that niche site and their makeup, it makes it really difficult to charge money from a private, but they've got great opportunity if they take a look at who is using the application and how they can monetize their user base to businesses that are working with them. So we'll talk about that when we get down to that niche application. And then, of course, the last comparison point that we have is something we're calling user interface. And a lot of times, design and user interface can sometimes overlap, and you may see some mirroring text when we talk about interface, as you saw on the design section. But specifically with interface, we're looking at the layout of the app. Like, where are buttons laid out? Are they easy to find? Are they easy for me to get to? Is it easy for my finger to click from here to here to here, or do they spread things out so far that it's very difficult for me to navigate through the application? So, and of course, placement of objects, taking in the user context into consideration. And again, that just means, again, that example that we gave, that person's on the subway, they've got one hand available with one finger or their thumb, navigating through your application. So does the interface and way things are laid out, does that take that into consideration? So we're looking at those things. Just going to throw it out there and ask a question. Can everybody hear okay? Is your audio okay? Are you any breakups okay with audio? Just use your message screen over there at the side to let me know. Okay. All fine, yes, good, okay. Okay, perfect, all right. Feel free if at any point as we go through this you have any issues with audio or anything like that, just message us. It's an interactive as it can be webinar. Okay, so now that we've talked about the comparison points, let's take a look at the apps that we're going to be looking at. So here on this page are the generalist apps that we're going to look at. So Kijiji, OLX, and Oodle. I think all of these are familiar to all of you on this call. And over here, these are the niche apps that we're looking at. So AutoTrader, clearly vehicles in terms of niche, and Indeed is a jobs board or jobs site. So again, as I mentioned before, we're taking a look at both generalist applications and also niche applications. So let's go into the comparison. Before we get too deep in that, though, again, I know I've mentioned it already 2 times so far in the webinar, which is taking the user into consideration and the user experience and the user context. Using your messaging or chat panel over on your right-hand side of your screen, how many of you, when you look to build new applications or new websites or even new products, start off by doing a user story? So building a personality about your users. Just say yes if you do, so we can get an understanding of how many of us are doing this already. I'll give it a second for those to come through. Okay. So based on what I'm seeing, it looks like very few. Okay, all right, never heard of this, but we do buyer persona, which is the same thing. So doing personas and user stories, we use them interchangeably. Our user stories start off with a persona at the beginning, so some basic profile information about that person, what they do, and then we build an actual story to give that person or this object or this persona life. So the persona may start off by saying, this is Jack, he's 30, and has this type of career, and is a heavy mobile user. But then we build a story about Jack's life, which is not really long, maybe 250 characters, a 250-word story. But anybody who is going to now design for the site or develop for the site has more insight into what our users look like, so it helps them as they go along the way. So if you're not doing personas today or user stories, it's something I would encourage you to do. It just makes sure that when you develop something, you put it out there to market, that you've really taken the time to think about the users, not just the data in terms of, what parts of the site are they clicking on the most and what technologies do they use to get to your site, but really giving some insight into who they are as people. It's going to help you to personalize your property. So as we start this comparison, in our mind, when we were doing the comparison, we're trying to take user context into mind. So where would they be using these applications? So we created a fictional person by the name of Jack. So here we say Jack is 30. He's a successful freelance photographer, lives in a sprawling urban city core. He's a condo owner, which is great. He commutes daily using public transport. So he's that person that's on the train that we keep talking about. And he works a lot of long hours. So, he uses his mobile phone to do a lot of his shopping, his checking, his messaging, his communications. That's his lifeline, his mobile phone. Now, Jack looks very happy traveling to work in the morning. I don't know about you guys, if you commute via train, people don't usually look this happy. But in this case, Jack is very happy. We're going with that. We're going with that story. Our client's very happy. So when we're doing user stories, we also want to think about, great, so this is who Jack is. What types of things will Jack need? Is Jack our ideal customer? From what you can see from what we've said about Jack, he is. So Jack is going to need things to, furnish his home. He may be looking to buy a new home. Maybe the condo's small. I don't know what condos are like in your city, but downtown Toronto, a 600-square-foot condo can cost you anywhere from $300,000 to $400,000. So maybe Jack wants to move out into the suburbs and buy a house that's far more affordable. Jack may need a car. Jack is definitely into entertainment, lives in the city center. Jack may need to look at hiring new staff for his thriving business. And Jack is also interested in travel. So we built this kind of persona about Jack, so we understand the kinds of things he'll be looking for. We know Jack is very busy, so we also know Jack is going to need to get his content very quickly. So that builds some context into how we were doing the comparisons as we move forward. So let's get into the first one. So the first one we want to talk about is Kijiji, okay? And I think, again, this is a platform that most of us on this call is very familiar with, given its eBay Marketplace affiliation, obviously. Kijiji, just to put it into perspective in terms of size and so on, they've got 11 million unique monthly visitors, 1 billion page views per month, 5 million live ads at any time, and according to the folks at Kijiji, an ad is posted every 2 seconds, which is pretty ridiculous. They are by far the largest classified property that we have here in Canada, by far. They've got multiple markets, but for sure Canada is their #1 marketplace, and they will even tell you so, on the eBay website where you're looking at all the different properties. They do make a mention to bring out Canada, but they've got multiple properties around the world. Let's jump right into the comparison here on Kijiji. And later on, too, at the end of the comparisons, we do have a couple of screenshots of some of the things that we said, were designed really well or laid out really well. So we'll show you some of that. Right now, we're just going to go through a text comparison for these headers. First one is design. So one of the things that we look at when it comes to design is when a user gets to your mobile application, is there some design consistency? So when I get to the app, I know it's you, even without looking at the logo. And these guys have done a really good job of branding consistency, which is really important to make sure everything is connected and it's a fully connected user experience, regardless of platform that they're using to communicate with you. The design, though, and in some cases this can be good if the proper amount of research is put into it, the design takes into the main site elements only. So it's clear that someone looked at some set of data statistics and said, well, these are the most important things to our users on the web. Let's make sure we take this into consideration when we're designing the application and design for these things. So you can definitely see that. They've got great visuals in terms of icons to let you know about your account status, which is good. One of the things that we talked about in our previous webinar was, considering that someone's using a mobile device and the screen is much smaller than their computer screen, you're going to want to make sure you're using good visuals. So they do a really good job of that. And they do try to take the user's environment into context with this design story. So the colors are bright, they're vibrant, icons are used in addition to text, so they make it very easy for you to see what you need to get to or where you need to go. Now, they don't use any messaging visuals for aid, and by that I mean text pop-ups. And the word pop-up, probably shouldn't use that word because a lot of us, for a lot of us, sorry, that's a curse word. But in the cases when you're sprung for time, using a small window, so your mobile phone, you're going to need as much help as possible to make sure you're not wasting any of your time to get to the detail you're looking for. They don't make a good use of text visuals for that. The other thing with this particular property, too, is that their help text, which oftentimes I'll need if it's my first time using your mobile application, their help icon is hard to find, and instead of it being on the toolbar at the bottom, they've got it up at the top of the site. So we talk a lot as we go through this webinar and do our comparisons. We talk a lot about that navigational toolbar and how extremely important it is for users so they can find the content sets that they're looking for, one. Two, so they can limit the amount of clicks that they have to take to get to information. That navigational content bar is so important. And here in the Kijiji case, when it comes to design, the design layout forced them to put the help text or help icon up at the top, making it really hard to find. So not a good thing. So for them, when we talk about design, we would suggest look at incorporating within your design the use of text visual aids. To help people if they seem lost or clicking on something or giving you incorrect information, sending incorrect information back to the database. Use text visuals to kind of help them and guide them along and design with that in mind. And of course, as I mentioned before, placing the important icons such as help, placing those important icons on the toolbar, on the navigational toolbar is extremely important. So when it comes to design, those are the things that we would consider on the Kijiji application. When it comes to function, it's clear that, again, as mentioned before, they did take a look at the data sets that were, so I'm reading people's comments on the side at the same time as doing the presentation. They did take a look at the data sets for what people were using on the website the most. And they put those in there. It's clear, and that's good. It's what you're supposed to do. Make your build representative of the data that you already have, and that's really good. But we'll talk about where they kind of missed the mark in a minute here. At times, too, based on how popular some of these functions were, on the app, you'll see that they've given multiple access points for that. So, for example, search is the one that they've given multiple access points for. And, of course, we know search is very important to anybody's classified experience, search, photos, the layout of content, and so on, but search being the primary. And because they're using multiple access points, and it's a good thing because we can see that they're taking different user behaviors into consideration. Instead of forcing you to search one way, they're giving multiple ways for you to do that, knowing that users kind of use search a little differently. The issue, though, with the function that we found in looking at the Kijiji application, and one of the common complaints from folks using their application, is that there was very little correlation to what's happening on the mobile app and what happens on the website. considering that the web property, the web classified property, has been in existence longer than the mobile app, there are many users who have created accounts on the website and had expected to have the same type of functionality on the mobile app, that I log in once and I can see my content between the two accounts, between the one account, regardless of where I've placed the ad. The Kijiji app doesn't allow you to do that. It's a separated and disjointed experience when you've got an account. So in essence then, you have two accounts, content in two different areas, which is not really good. Before, as I mentioned, some of the very important things to classifieds, search being one of them, images being another. The challenge or the downfall here with the images on Kijiji, there is no way for us to make those images bigger than what they were. Folks are going to want to expand images, especially because the thumbnail on my smartphone is a lot smaller than the thumbnail I would see when I'm online on the website. So being able to expand images, very important on a mobile application. They don't do that. Some of the functionality that folks found really important from using the Kijiji website wasn't available in the application. Specifically here, we're talking about the refinement of their search results, and there are a lot of complaints from users on that one. So they've not done a good job of, adding in some of those updates to get the additional functionality features in there. Right now, too, they're also running on only one operating system, which is the iOS, the Apple system. For them, one of the things that we're noticing is that the complaints from launch of the application to today are the same. So they've done a couple of upgrades to the application, but they're more for system handling, more for facilities, technical facilities, and not so much for functionality. So for them, I would say, listen to the user reviews, include updates for those reviews, keep informed, keep users informed of the things that you're changing. But, if you read your reviews, you listen to what users are saying, look for the common access points or the commonalities, and make those changes. It goes a long way to show each user that you're listening to their commentary or their concerns around the application to make the use a lot easier for them. In the case of Kijiji, it's pretty interesting that the application functions the same way it did when it launched to now. It's been over a year, and the complaints are exactly the same from then to now. So that doesn't form well when we're looking at their functionality and doing a comparison there. Accessibility. So where can I find the application? They've done a pretty good job, actually, when it comes to accessibility. So obviously it's available in the App Store. It's available on the brand's website. And it appears, when you're searching the App Store, it appears amongst the top of the search results and across different keyword searches as well. So they've done a really good job in their description. In their body of the description, they're using really good keywords like free, local, classifieds, buy, sell, trade, cards, all the things that we know go into making up a robust classified site. So they were very smart in writing their description of the app for the App Store. One thing that we'll say, though, is that they did have poor real estate for the mobile app download on their website. It was kind of hidden at the bottom, which is not very good. If you want us to use the mobile app when we're on the go, it'd be great if you gave it better real estate. The other thing, too, is they did a good job writing the description for the App Store, but did not do a good job updating keywords and metadata on their actual website. So when searching on a regular browser, regular computer, I'm not on the App Store, but when searching for mobile apps for Kijiji, they were far down the list. So it shows that they thought about the App Store, but not about regular search. For us, when it comes to accessibility, it's the whole thing. You've got to think about the entire package. Can you find it on my website? Can you find it in the App Store when you're doing searches with what I think is relevant to my application, but also can you find it on the web? So in that web SERP and updating metadata and so on for our website are things that people often forget when updating or uploading or submitting an app to the App Store. That's something they often forget. I want to talk about monetization, and there are going to be some similarities as we go through these different applications when it comes to monetization, because no app that we have found to date yet for classifieds and listings, has done a great job with monetization. And we know it can be done because there are other industrial or categorical apps that do in-app purchases. So we know it can be done, but we do know it takes a long time, and it may be, the publisher is thinking we've got all these other properties to take care of. We'll tackle monetization at another date, If you remember from our last webinar that we had, we said in a lot of ways, users are being really accepting of some of the downfalls when it comes to mobile apps that we put out there. And for them, they're thinking, well, it's still relatively new to them, this whole mobile app phenomenon. Really, if mobile app phenomenon was a person, it would probably be 3 or 4 years old. So, and we think about the App Store and so on, so it's still relatively young. So people are far more mindful and accepting to some of our downfalls, but that's all going to change. The very same way when websites first came into existence, I was okay with the kludgy kind of layout and the poor design because I was just excited that I could find content on the web. But today, if I went to a site, had poor design and kludgy tool sets, I'm going to discard the site, come out of that site, and go on to another web page to find another solution for what I'm looking for. And I think the same can be said about monetization. So we've put up these apps today where you can't pay for things within the app. We're missing the mark, and we're missing a big chunk of revenue by not focusing on how we can better monetize some of these applications. Also, monetizing the application will ensure that you will now be able to employ and afford the resources needed to keep the app updated, to monitor the app, to monitor user feedback, and also afford the resources to make your updates to the application. So monetization is very important, because users expect to spend money using the app. I think the last time we spoke, the number was 60% of smartphone owners said that they would consider using their mobile phones as some sort of credit card application. So they are saying they're accepting the fact that they can pay for items via their smartphone. We're just not listening and acting accordingly. And the same can be said with Kijiji and the others we talk about. There's no way to pay for ads or upsells from the application. No easy way to tell the difference between people who have bought premium placement on the website when you're looking at the mobile app. There's no way to tell what was an upsell or not. They do have banners. There are banners on the Kijiji application, but they're banners that promote Kijiji and Kijiji initiatives only. So I won't go through the considerations part because I just talked about it in terms of, bridging the gap and looking to try to monetize your applications, because it can really mean so much for you in the end in terms of ensuring you can hire resources to better manage it. I mean, we all get it and we all understand, which is why we've done 3 webinars so far back-to-back on mobile. We all get that this is what we need to be focusing on. The rest of our business, though, doesn't seem to align with that understanding that we all have. One thing, too, I'll say, and I think we talked about this in our first HTML5 versus native webinar, if your concern is there are lots of rules when submitting apps to the App Store where there are lots of, sorry, I'm seeing here that someone's got a problem with audio. Anybody else have a problem? Is audio okay? Just check in with me. Okay. All right, so it looks like audio's working. The one person that's having an issue with audio, if you message Marlene, she'll work with trying to see if we can get your audio fixed up. So as I was saying, I know that submitting apps to the App Store becomes a very difficult and arduous process if you've got commerce within that. There are tons of rules for security reasons, which makes sense. However, there are ways that you can allow people to start the purchase process, but when it comes to giving a credit card or connecting to PayPal, you can send them through to your mobile website, so not the application, but now you send them out of the app onto your mobile website and incorporate your payment agent that you have on your website, which you know is secure. So you can do it. There are ways to do it. It just means we have to take some time to put that in place. So user interface, when we talk about that, what we're seeing with Kijiji, it's an acceptable layout. The content flows nicely, especially on the Add Details page. The Add Details page on the Kijiji app is probably one of the better ones that I've seen because it lays the information out nicely. There's multiple clicks that I have to do to get the info, and the relevant information is right at the top, and we do have a screenshot of that for you. But it's probably one of the better ones that I've seen out there when it comes to mobile classified apps. Because of the layout of the application, it makes it really easy for me to contact the seller and so on. We did have a hard time with some of the interface tools. Some of the interface tools in terms of sharing the content or saving the application or saving the listing, were difficult to find. But for the most part, their interface was really well done. And again, we've got a screenshot that will show you of that. I'm going to move on here quickly, and I won't spend as much time going through the comparison on some of the others. We spend a lot of time on Kijiji, but I'll go through the points. I'm just trying to be mindful of time here. The next one we want to compare is OLX, and this property by far is much larger than Kijiji, far larger span when it comes to geographies. As you can see here, they've got 140 million unique monthly visitors, 40 million page views, and that's per day, close to 2 million ads posted per month. The difference, too, with OLX, and I guess Oodle's fairly similar when I say this point, OLX has done a lot of experimental things with social media and social media properties. And so you'll see as we go through their design and some of the tool sets that they make available, you'll see elements of that coming out as you go through their application. When it comes to design, again, branding consistency is there. I'm not confused as the user. I can tell it's OLX's website. They're using the same colors in their logo for the icons, which is really good. They do a really good job with using large text and large images, which is great because remember on my mobile phone, the real estate's small, smaller the images, smaller the text, is going to be harder for me to read. They take that into consideration. But they too also, which is fine again if it's led by data, they too also only take the main site elements into consideration in their design, which is fine, especially if it's led by data. What we did have a concern with, though, is that we couldn't find any help, icons, or aids at all laid out or incorporated within the design. That was a bit difficult to kind of maneuver with, especially if it's your first time using the app or your first time doing a particular function with the app. We did also notice that some of the design elements were very web-heavy, very reminiscent of a website, as opposed to being reminiscent of me using a mobile phone. So again, before we talked about make sure you're designing for the device, you're designing for mobile. It's very different than designing for a website. Trying to cut corners, people will notice, maybe not in the way that I've noticed, but as they try to use the particular tool sets, they'll notice that you've kind of cut corners, and are using more web-like rendering on your application. So for them, when we're looking at the design, you know, we would probably tell them to go back and look at a design that incorporates more help and aid for the user so as to allow them to kind of walk through the process of posting ads or searching for content a lot easier. There was a stat that we shared with you guys in one of our earlier webinars, which was 25% of the apps that are downloaded are used only once and then never used again. So when we talk about little things like help and aid and some text to tell me where I'm going, it may sound really meticulous and like a small detail, but considering how fickle some of our mobile users are, it's an important detail to make sure they'll come back to the application and not get frustrated and shut it down. So for OLX, we'd probably tell them to go back and take a look at the design and properly incorporate some help and aid for users on the mobile application. When it comes to functionality, they've done a pretty decent job. One of the things that they do that very few classified applications do, they've made it so that any activity that I do on the mobile application is also mirrored and available for me when I log into the website, via the website. So I have one account and my content is in both accounts. unlike the Kijiji experience we just talked about where it was disconnected. I have one account, but content is in two different areas. Here, it's all in one spot, so they've done a really good job with that. They've also done a good job with content filters, more so than Kijiji did. So when I've got search results there, I've got filters that I can use to narrow or refine my search to really get to what I'm looking for. Search is given great prominence. As a matter of fact, search is not just on that the navigational toolbar at the bottom, but search is right there, front and center, smack dab on the landing page when you get there. So they're taking a look at what people use their site for the most, what they're most in tune with, and they're making sure that those elements are available on the application. They also do some neat things such as offering video. So you can upload video from your phone. So for them, you can see they're taking a look at what are people using their mobile phones for. A lot of us, especially now, if you've got the latest smartphones, sometimes the photo imagery is much better than your standalone camera from your smartphone. And the same goes for videos. It's quick, it's right there, it's at my fingertips. So they're allowing people to use some of those functions some of those tool sets that are on their smartphone and integrate that with their activity on the website, so on the mobile app, sorry. So uploading video is one of those. The other thing that OLX does in a good way is they add some additional tools that increase the engagement from a user to the brand on the mobile app. So, for example, when I'm in the help section or trying to get help, I can join certain forums. I've got an in-app mailbox, so if I'm communicating with them, I can go back to the mailbox to see what they said if they answered my support query. So what they're saying to me is, Ms. Crandon, if you like to communicate with us and use our property using mobile, that's okay. And we're going to allow you to do all of the functionality that you need from your mobile app, which I think is a pretty neat offering. It may not be what I would go to market with. I think some of the tool sets that they have are nice to have and not necessarily things that you need out of the gate. But I think, if you've been in existence for a while and you're adding new features to your application, I think they've done a good job with that. They also do a really neat mapping functionality, which again takes into consideration the operating system that I have, and their feature set is something called Around Me. If I click on Around Me, and if I've given it access to locate me using my phone's GPS tool sets, it will then show classified listings that are around my particular area. And it's pretty exact. It's pretty good. It's actually a neat way to kind of use mapping functionality with the mobile app. I don't know if you remember, but the last time we spoke, we talked about what applications were on people's smartphones and what they used the most and what they felt was more meaningful and what they were engaged with the most. And the most engaged element on their smartphone was GPS or mapping functionality. So again, you can see OLX is taking those things into consideration. They're really looking at what you're using your mobile phone for, what you use it for the most, and trying to incorporate those elements onto the website. Again, a lot of the stuff you may not need at launch, but it's interesting to see how they're trying to incorporate all of that. They did fall short in one area when it came to functionality. When they tried to use a web format of a slider, which is very difficult to be exact when you're using your thumb. It was one of those horizontal sliders, and when you're using your thumb and the way that slider was set up, it was very hard to be exact in terms of your price points. I would refrain from using that. There are native search sliders to operating systems which work far better. It's that one that has a little clicking noise as you scroll down the screen. They work far better. I would look at really using those native tool sets when it comes to search functionality and refinement. Again, they went with one that you would normally see on a website, very difficult to use. For them, one of the things that we would say is, it's great that they've got all that neat functionality, and it's clear that they thought about how you're using your phone. They probably could have looked at packaging it up a little better. In some cases, when we were trying to search or post ads, we found some of the nice-to-have extras cluttery. It kind of blurred what we were trying to do, and it took us away from our task. There's probably a better way to kind of package that up. So I would encourage them to go back and take a look at that. But all in all, I mean, probably the deepest functionality tool set that we've seen when it comes to mobile classifieds. Again, you don't need all this stuff at launch, but it's interesting to see how they packaged it up. Accessibility, for these guys, it's available in the App Store, obviously, and on the website, and they've given great real estate to it, probably one of the better real estate placements for classifieds that we've seen on a website. And it's easy to find, too, when I'm searching on the website. So they've done a good job of making sure they've updated their keywords and metadata for the actual site to represent that they've got a mobile application that you can use. However, when I look at the description for the app in the App Store, it was a real basic use of keywords, and the app headline wasn't good at all. Later on in one of these descriptions, we've got a link that will help people when trying to build or write descriptions. When you're writing a description, you've got to think clearly about your copy, and it's almost like you're writing, like you're an SEO writer. You're a search engine optimization writer. Think like that. You're not writing a lovely narrative or prose that you're going to hand into the book club. You're writing something to make it easy for folks to find your application. So they didn't really do a good job when it comes to accessibility in terms of the description. And again, I've got an example or a website story that can help you when you're looking to write your description, and I think that's up on the next comparison slide. For monetization, again, as I mentioned, no one is allowing us to spend money in app, and I challenge all of you. And anybody doing that or anybody trying to spec that out, let me know. It'd be interesting to kind of follow your process. So I challenge all of you to kind of be the first to market with something like that. I think it makes sense for what we do. But again, so no one, they're not allowed to spend money to post an ad and buy an upsell here. They do have banner ads that run in the app. However, the banner ads aren't targeted. They're just general ads. So they do become a nuisance because they're not targeted or relevant to what I'm searching or my profile, things that I've searched for in the past. So that becomes a bit of a nuisance. But at least they are trying to monetize the application in some sense. So for them, again, the same consideration. We would probably tell them to go back and we'd give them the same challenge we just gave you, which is, be the first to market, allowing folks to spend money with you as they're posting a classified ad. Again, the data shows people want to spend the money. We're just not giving them the opportunity to, which as business people is quite funny. User interface, for OLX, they've got a great layout. Overall, I mean, it's easy to contact the seller. No real concerns here with how they've laid things out. However, when you get onto the ad details page, the only thing that we did notice was they gave you some text, and if you wanted to get additional information, you had to click on another button and then it expanded. I think on a page as important as the ad details page, where this is what's going to allow me to either buy this item, contact the seller, or save the item to look at later on, I want you to give me all of the information. Just let me scroll down, up and down with my thumb. I want to be clicking to get additional information. That stuff should be laid out there easily for me to see. So for considerations with them, with the user interface, again, we're going to say be mindful of how many clicks someone has to take to get to the actual content. The lesser the clicks, the better the experience. And that's OLX. The next one we want to talk about is Oodle. Then we're going to go into niche applications, and we'll kind of do a chart too comparing all of these in terms of all the different comparison headings. So Oodle, again, known probably to all of us on the phone. I know that they've been to a couple of ICMA conferences too, so you've probably met the team behind Oodle. Oodle, again, very large. As you know, they aggregate content from many sources, 80,000 websites. They've got social media partnerships. So as I mentioned with OLX, OLX and Oodle are probably the two kind of generalist classified apps that have experimented with social and tried to incorporate social into what they're doing. But for Oodle, it's a curse and also a winning element, and we'll talk a bit about that as we go through this. Good use of space for Oodle in terms of design. There was great placement of the tools on the page, so it was easy for me to find the tools. They designed those quite well. They used great icons to represent activity. Colors were easy on the eye, but one thing I'll say about the colors, when you got into the app, it changed from the branded colors. So I was a little confused about why it did that and if it was using the same app or did they send me out of their app to something else or a sister app. So yes, it was great and easy on the eyes, but it did cause some confusion. There was lack of consistency. For them, when it comes to design, we'd probably talk about looking at in making sure you're using the same kind of consistent branding colors throughout. It's great for brand consistency and brand recognition. Not doing that did cause some confusion. The other thing, too, I'll say with the design, and this kind of borders on functionality, but a lot of it comes from the pieces that your designer will give you when they spec something out. They did not do a good job here in designing visual aids that I was doing something wrong and placing an ad, which is a little concerning. So right now I have an ad on Oodle, which is spelled incorrectly. The header is wrong. Words are smushed together. So it was like they didn't have any real estate or design specs to talk about, you know, have a pop-up here and have it appear over on the side to help this person so they're putting in the best possible ad ever. So, and I did that on purpose, too. It's not that I can't spell. So if you see it, don't laugh at me. I did it on purpose. So let me move on to talk about functionality. Now, this is where I have a really hard time with what Oodle has done. First of all, let's talk about the good. Great image handling. Probably one of the better image handling sets that I've seen, and I've got a screenshot for you in all of our comparisons and tools that we've used for classified apps over the years. Add details page, great tool set, great content there. If you sign in with Oodle, of course you're using your Facebook account, so you have access to your content on Facebook or on Oodle. That's the same. So as OLX kind of combines your accounts, Oodle does it using Facebook. The social connection, because you're logging in with Facebook, it does increase the engagement. Now, for example, when we placed ads, normally on the other applications, we'd place an ad and we'd come out and do something else. On Oodle, I looked at what my friends had posted. I guess I was being a little nosy, you know, seeing what they're selling, what they have, and so on. So it does cause for some engagement, so I'll give them that. Sorry. However, our biggest pain point with this is that in order for me to post an ad, I have to share my Facebook information, which I know that they're doing it. The relationship is there because they want to build engagement and make it social, but it's also going to turn a lot of people off from using the application. In addition to that, the integration with Facebook is only partial. I already have a Facebook account, but I was forced to also create an Oodle account. I connected them with Facebook and then created an Oodle account all at once. And I couldn't just create an Oodle account, an organic Oodle account, and post content. I had to connect them to Facebook. So that was a little bit of a kludging experience. You want to be social, I get it, I understand that, but make sure the experience is smooth and well connected. It wasn't at all that case with them. In addition to that too, in registering with Oodle, they forced me to leave the app, go into my mail, confirm my email address, then come back to the app and continue doing what I was doing. There's got to be a better way to do that. I know we do this, obviously, as website creators, because of concerns with privacy. But with all of the tool sets that are out there, there are better ways to do that. You can allow the person, for example, to complete the activity on the mobile application while they're there. They've got 5 minutes, they're doing it. Still send them out that email saying, hey, you just need to confirm your email address. Have them complete the process and let them know at the end of that they just need to confirm their email address and we're good to go and it's done. At least they're finished posting the ad or finished doing whatever functionality it was on your website that needed them to register in the first place, and then they can go and confirm the email address. Asking them to confirm the email address mid-activity is not a good look, very disconnected, and will cause you to become that 25% that is downloaded, used once, and never used again. So that was a big pain point with Oodle and going through the functionality. In terms of accessibility, again, available through the App Store and so on and on their website. They've got 2 operating systems, so iOS and Android, but their description was really poor, both the title and the body of the description. The core focus of the app wasn't clear. They spent a lot of time talking about social and Facebook and see what your friends are doing. No, no, no. I'm coming there because I want to buy classified listings. I want to buy a classified item. I want to search for classified listings. I want to find cars, antiques, that type of thing. Very little of that was used in their description. So it wasn't very clear to me what OODLE was all about. If you look under the consider side of this slide, you'll see a URL here at the bottom. And of course, because we're recording this and you'll get the recorded webinar, you'll be able to get the URL at that point. But Acrolinks is an online service that helps businesses write great content. They'll ask you what content you're trying to write. Is it for a website, a mobile app, that type of thing? And they'll help you write the best possible, indexable, if that's even a word, indexable content ever. If you're having a hard time, you think writing so that you're using the right keywords and so on, using tools like Acrolinks, and I'm sure there's others that are out there, will help you in making sure you're writing a good and useful description for your application. Monetization, nothing new here. It's the same as what we said before. They do have in-app banner ads, but they do a poor job of making those ads targeted. They're all just general ads, so they do become a bit of a nuisance. Interface, it's an acceptable layout. The content flow is okay, easy for me to share content, of course, that whole social piece. But I got to say, just to sum up with OODLE, it's clear that if it wasn't for their web business model in terms of aggregating content, providing widgets or white-labeled services, and if they were a standalone with this mobile app, the mobile app would have a hard time in terms of being successful. It probably is one of the worst that we've seen at this point. And I hate saying things are one of the worst, but it really is. There's a lot, if you want to know what not to do, there's a lot that you can take from the OODLE app. And we'll leave it at that. If you want more details, we can talk after. You can email me and we can talk after. Niche, I'll be really quick here. We did a couple of niche sites, and one was vehicles for autos, based on some of the properties that I know you guys own. AutoTrader, I won't go into all the specs here, but AutoTrader Canada is by far the deepest penetrated by dealers in terms of content and the most popular auto platform within the country. When it comes to design, the design is actually really good. They've done an amazing job with the design. It does look a little different than the website, but what they did do, they've got some really sleek kind of television ads and some billboard ads that use this kind of textured background, and they've been using that textured background for years. They brought that into the application. So even though it's a little different from the web, you recognized it when you saw it. So that's okay. Great use of visuals to guide the user. As a matter of fact, I just want to go back to this screen here. And looking at this screen, anybody want to hazard a guess on what people say is the best part of this mobile application? Just write it over there on your chat screen. I'll give you guys a couple of seconds. Any ideas? What do you think it is? Okay, so I'm seeing this is a smart group. When we look at the reviews and talk to people who are actually from the organization, by far the #1 set of feedback is that the user FAQs, the help text, are absolutely amazing, the best that they've ever seen or ever used. And if you notice, too, and we talk about it on functionality, these guys have done a really clever job. When you get to the app, regardless if it's your first time, second time, third time, they've chosen to land you on the help page. And they've done so because they've got these big navigational icons at the bottom, so you can click around if you want to go to your account or go to search, but they've chosen to land you here. So you have no concerns or very limited concerns in terms of navigating through the application. Really clever. As I mentioned before, really easy to use text visuals to help users as they go along the process. So I got to say, from the design perspective, they've done a really good job. When it comes to function, this thing is extremely fast. So unlike some of the other apps that we looked at, it's clear that they built the application with speed and database and technical facilities in mind. It's absolutely fabulous how quickly the information was returned and how smoothly it was returned back to you. The search functionality is really great. We've got a screenshot of it. They've given you great fields for you to enter in your criteria for search, so the basic things that you need, and the advanced stuff are nested in an advanced button. They've done a really good job there. They've got great image handling as well on their application. When you get to the Add Details page, and I've got an example of that, an awesome layout of Add Details. They've done a really good job. But there is an issue where we saw with the photo icon. There was a photo icon on the Add Details page, and I'll show that to you. And clicking on it, you would think that you'd be able to go to more photos or whatnot, but however, it was inoperable. So for them, when it comes to function, you know, if I'm on a mobile phone, I'm looking at the real estate that's on my screen, I'm going to be looking and expecting all the buttons there to be functional. So if they're going to use buttons or icons of parts of the site that are functional, make sure it's functional all throughout the site, because that can cause some confusion. Accessibility, again, it's available in all of these areas. Classifieds, autos, bikes, trucks have done a good job in terms of that. They did, though, do a poor job in terms of writing the description, and that could be because the property is as large as it is. Many folks felt, well, everybody knows who Auto Trader is. We don't need to do a good job in being very descriptive in what we are and what you can find on site. They just used the term Auto Trader a lot. Largest site, very big, talked about size. It didn't really talk about what you would find there if you were someone new to using Auto Trader. And again, it could be because of size they felt they didn't have to. It's easy to see the differences between, when it comes to monetization, it's easy to see the differences between private and commercial content, but again, you can't post anything from the website, nor can you pay for anything from the website. Now, I know I just kind of brushed over that particular point. Unlike the other applications where you could post a classified ad, at least a free classified, you cannot post from this app. Now, I'll say this. This is the new version of the app, which is released, I want to say, late summer, early fall. So it could be that improvements to allow people to post ads are coming. But at this point, it was a little odd that you couldn't even post a free classified ad. So that functionality is not available when it comes to this part of Auto Trader. User interface, a really good job. Again, it was very hard for us to find fault with their interface. The only thing that we did find is on the Add Details page, that toolbar, that navigational toolbar, did disappear. So when trying to go back to do search, you had to press back and then hit the search button on the page you get to next to go and do a new search. So that just caused an extra step in the process, which we felt could have been avoided if they just kept that navigational toolbar. Indeed is a jobs market or a jobs board, and they've got their mobile app as well. What I'll say about Indeed and design, and this will sum it up really easily for you, I won't have to spend a lot of time on this page. The Indeed application today looks the exact same as it did in 2009 when it was launched. I don't have to say anything more. And I dare you to find a difference. It is the exact same today as what it looked like in 2009. So needless to say, it left a lot to be desired for the design. It was minimal, that's great, but they've got some room to go with design. By far, probably the one poorly designed sites that I've seen. Now, they do make up for it, though, when it comes to functionality. They do have a ton of functionality tool sets that are beneficial to the job user, and they specifically talked about the job user, they thought about the job user, where they save my career searches, and when I come back to the application again, it shows me my previous career searches and says, Beverly, well, listen, we've got 34 new listings here. And that's what I care about as a job seeker, is what's new since I was last on there. Can I apply for something else? So they do a really good job in terms of serving up that information for me. They think about the job user, or the job seeker, and what they're going to be most interested in. So design, bad, functionality, not so bad, it's all right. Accessibility, it is available in the App Store, but it's hard to find on the company's website. But they've done a really good job in doing regular browser searches for the app, so they've done a good job in terms of updating metadata and so on and keywords for the website. When you take a look at their copy on the App Store too, that also left a bit to be desired. Monetization, they have in-app banners, but they're very basic and not targeted at all. You can't post anything from the app and no upsell rendering. You can't see what is premium content. And I know for them it's a little difficult to charge employers from the app, but they could look at including user functionality which can later be monetized to employers. So for example, uploading resumes or some other type of list building functionality that they know that they can then monetize later on to employers, as some of you have resume banks that you then charge employers to access and so on. So they don't do any of that, but could look to do that for monetization. User interface, again, I'll say that the relevant information that I need as a job seeker is there. That's easy. But the lack of a proper navigational toolbar was their biggest downfall in looking at their application. Here, just a quick summary then of what we would rank all of these when it comes to their performance in all of these headlines. For design, AutoTrader by far. For functionality, OLX, because of how much they tried to package in there and the different tool sets that they offered, you can tell they took into consideration how we use our mobile phones. Indeed, I gave them a 4 only because you could tell in terms of the functionality that they laid out smack dab in the center, they were thinking about the job seeker, the person using the application. So I gave them some points for that. Monetization, no one really did a good job with monetization. User interface, I scored AutoTrader the highest. OLX and Kijiji were tied right behind AutoTrader. And accessibility, OLX and AutoTrader. AutoTrader got a high mark, even though it was hard to find it on their website. They got a high mark because in searching within the App Store, it was clear that they used really good keywords within their description, because I can find them looking at cars, trucks, bikes, any possible thing that I searched for in the App Store, they came up, any possible relevant thing, and came up above places like Harley Davidson and so on in the App Store. So they've done a good job of making sure they're accessible all around. When it comes to keywords too, know that you've got 100 characters, put commas between the different keywords when you're submitting your app. Make sure you really use a good list of extensive keywords that really describe your application the way you want it to be described. So when people are searching, it's easy for them to find. So a couple of screenshots. This is from Oodle. Remember I talked about their image handling was probably one of the better ones that I've seen. If I've got multiple images on an ad, I can either scroll through them in the ad details page or click on the ad to expand it to see a larger rendering of the ad, which I thought that was really neat the way they used some of the mobile operating system tool sets for viewing images right within the ad. Talking about clear ways to post an ad, this came from OLX, and when it came for me putting up photos, it was very obvious that I could put up a maximum of 4 photos, and as I put up a photo, one of these boxes would be filled up. I can even add photos by clicking on a box as well. It would open up my image picker to upload the image here as well. So that was pretty easy to use. Engagement. Remember I told you the curse and the blessing of Oodle is their relationship with Facebook. So really good for engagement as I get to browse through what my friends are selling. This is actually my mom's friend, not my friend, but she's following me on Facebook. Nonetheless, I can see what she's selling. Search. Again, I talked about Trader and Trader Search. Above here, there are some additional kind of basic fields that you would fill in. And then, of course, there's the advanced search. If I wanted to do advanced search, I clicked on this button. It would expand and allow me to use some other slider-type functionality, the ones that are native to our phones with the little clicking noise, proper sliders for me to use when it comes to search. In terms of layout, as I mentioned before, you know, AutoTrader, which is over here on the left, and on the right is Kijiji, they do a great job of making sure the key information is there. I can respond to the seller and so on very easily. Great layout of ads. So I'm rushing because I know I'm 4 minutes over time. So things to remember, really quickly. When you start the build, again, your user story is really important. Even when you're comparing your application to someone else, keeping the user context in mind is really important. That's why we started off with that story about Jack. Don't underestimate the importance of help guides. Again, we have that story about AutoTrader and the fact that they neatly land you on the help page. That's your landing page, regardless of if you're a repeat user or a new user. You know, that's pretty neat. And that turns out to be the best thing for them, because it really allowed users to get engaged with the application. They've got a lot of reviews, and almost all of them are very positive about the application so far. The navigational toolbar is a must. Make sure it's there on every page, consistent placement. It's going to help to minimize the clicks to the things that are most important to me on your application. Getting rid of it on the Add Details page makes no sense to me, considering that, you know, it could stay in a stationary position and the context on the page can kind of slide up and down. You want to make sure that navigational toolbar is on every page. You want to spend time when you're writing your description thinking about the title and the copy that's going to be associated with your application when you're submitting it to the App Store. That's really important. Think like you're writing for SEO purposes and you're not writing lovely prose for me to read later on. Also, when we talk about descriptions, update your website, the keywords used for your website and the metadata used for your website, to make sure people know that you've got a mobile app if they're just searching via a regular browser on the web. Think about monetization and content acquisition strategies. Monetization more so, it's something we're not all doing at all, and it's something that users are saying they're willing to spend money on. So they're wanting to give us money. We're not yet answering their call. And again, the last thing, which I say all the time, listen to your data, review your data, listen to your users. That's going to tell you what needs to be improved, what needs to be enhanced, what needs to be worked on. So closing, again, here's Jack. Your mobile solution starts with the user first. We've gone over time. I'm really sorry. 6 minutes over time. I see questions. I'm going to print off all these questions, respond to folks individually, and then I'll also send Heather a copy of the questions with the answers, Heather at ICMA, and then you can use those as you wish or post them on the site with the recording of this. Again, thank you all very, very much for joining today, and we look forward to doing our next one with you. Take care.